All right, everyone, we should be live. Let's make sure that's actually the case over on Rumble. Of course, yes, I do understand that having an irregular streaming schedule at the moment is an inconvenience to some people. Again, I'm going to try to get my shit together, but I've had a lot of other shit that I have to get together as well. A million things. I'm still doing some now. I've got a lot to do, a lot on my plate at the moment. But I will try to normalize the schedule. By the way, no shirtless sticks today. Some of you are sad about that. It's too fucking cold today. It's cold enough outside that even the inside of the house is a little bit refrigerated, which I'm not a particular fan of. I like it warm. I can't wait till about mid-July when it's 85, 90 degrees. That'll be nice. Soapmaker19. Greetings, Clank Nation. Sticks, I really hope you do a Super Tuesday live stream. It is also my birthday. Congratulations on that. Keep on clanking in the free world. Yes, I will definitely be doing a live stream during the Super Tuesday results. That is absolutely true. I'm going to be doing Iowa. I'll do New Hampshire, South Carolina. I'm going to do the early states in Super Tuesday. The latter races, probably by Super Tuesday, we already understand Trump's going to run the entire field. So I may or may not. I'll cover maybe other political stuff. Like if there's a major news conference or something like that, some big thing occurs while I'm awake at least. And so I'll take care of that. I'm very much interested in returning to doing primary streaming and stuff. That was lit back in the day. And I've got a little bit of a better sort of setup here with StreamYard now. So it should be fun. We're going to be talking about Vermont's educational spending and a forecast to drive 18.5% property tax hike, which would cripple our state, by the way. It would drive thousands, maybe tens of thousands of people out of the state. We got to talk about the good and the bad news. The good news is they're not going to get 18.5%. The bad news is that because you have a Democratic supermajority in the House and the Senate, and a lot of those people are in areas where they're going to be safely reelected, they could ram through a significant property tax hike, which affects much more than simple private homeowners because a lot of people rent as well. That'd be fun. If the rent wasn't too damn high already, the state of Vermont would become unaffordable for the average middle classer. Right now, it's already unaffordable for anyone that's below the solid center of the middle class. And even that's sort of on the margins. This, I think, would be a tipping point for the state's economy. I think it would literally cripple the economy of the state. We'll talk about that. The border crisis, of course. Biden is blaming Republicans for bouncing a bill that would have spent more money on the border. See, the problem is, of course, as usual, that's shenanigans because that bill came attendant with a bunch of other bullshit, too, that was effectively unpassable. We'll talk about that. California, and this is, by the way, when I say this, this is not a parody headline. This is not a troll site. This is actual news. California to provide free sex changes for illegal immigrants. Yeah, we'll be discussing that, I'm sure, in some depth. Nikki Haley fucked up again. I mean, what else is new? We'll talk about that probably briefly. I get into ranting so much that usually the first 3 or 4 news articles I can get into in depth, and then I have to gloss the rest over. Yesterday, I think I was talking about Bruce Willis for 10 minutes, so it eats into the time. We've got polling with regards to Biden's job approval, and it ain't good. It's really, really bad. A 16.2% deficit in the spread. To be clear, in his darkest hour, I believe Trump was running ahead of this. During the peak of lockdownerism with the economy teetering on the edge, Donald Trump had more support than Joe Biden at this particular moment. Nonetheless, the messaging hasn't changed. And I'm thinking, I believe that a lot of independent voters find it tone deaf, actually, at this point. We'll get into that. Houston grand jury declines to charge man who shot and killed robber inside taqueria. Yes, you remember that famous video there? Dude walks into the place with a firearm, waves it around, and is trying to rob things effectively. The dude shot him. The gun turned out to be fake. It was a toy gun. However, the grand jury ignored the Soros prosecutors' pleas to charge him, and effectively now he's free to go on his merry way, which is good. Now we need more good Samaritans in the world. So yeah, we've got all sorts of shit to talk about. Yeah, baby. Gonna be a good time. Alicia Jones, my locale failed to pass a local tax increase once and just kept putting it on the ballot until it got passed. Many such cases. The Jerk, no comment, so give me money, jerk. You can always pay me to say just about anything that won't get me banned. Music and fiction, welcome to Friday. Here's to hoping that nothing massive happens over the weekend or that Joe Biden falls over during his January 6th speech tomorrow. Maybe clank while he clonks. Yeah, I mean, he does that regularly. He could trip over a sandbag or up or down the stairs. They probably need a ramp on his podium. And still has to have Jill hold him and daughters up, and then he gets confused, doesn't really necessarily know where he is all the time or what fucking year it is. Swamp Donkey, red counties need to leave their blue states, join the nearest red state. Screw McCourts, the left ignores them, so why play the game? Stop sending money to blue cities. That's not feasible politically, although it would solve a lot of problems. I do believe that cities should be treated a little bit more like city-states within the U.S. Doctrine. Because otherwise you get a situation where somebody's they're living in, let's say, Oregon, but they don't live in Portland or something like that. They live way out in the middle of nowhere, and they're being deprived of the ability to defend themselves against a goddamn grizzly bear. So I don't support that. Scott Steiner, the world's greatest ring announcer. Minnesota governor looks and is the glasses FUD meme guy. After seeing what he looks like, I can't stop laughing. I took 10 minutes to read his post because he is the FUD guy. Please tell me I'm wrong. Minnesota governor, isn't that Pritzker? I think. Can't remember who the governor of Minnesota is. No, Tim Walz. Oh, yeah, he does. Yeah, you are correct. Was the FUD meme actually modeled on this man? That one picture is uncanny, including the boomer smile. Holy shit. Yeah, you're definitely right. You are accurate. You are correct. Just Me 77. Sticks, you are my anchor man. Thank you. I just hope I don't end up like actual anchor man, wandering around, guzzling milk after being fired. Alex Fiala, discovered you recently. Love your stuff. Oops, sorry. Do you think we'll actually have an election in 2024? I'm not so sure. Yeah, but it's going to be a messy and fucked up one because we might see a situation. I mean, there's a feasible possibility that a dead man with recently printed ballots necessitating Kamala to be hastily written in potentially at that point is running against somebody with an ankle monitor. It's going to be fun. Let me tell you, you'll definitely enjoy the ride. Next year's going to be great. Boycott Warhammer Plus. I just slid a chunky steamer down the hatch. Congratulations. Would you describe it as steamy? Salt A. Good morning, afternoon, Sticks. Would you rather watch a tree grow or a knee grow? I get the reference. I like trees. Just saying. Anyway, we'll get to the first news story. Vermont education spending forecast to drive 18.5% property tax hike. Good and bad news. Good news, they're not going to get 18.5%, and they'd be batshit to pass it, by the way. The bad news is that the Dems have a supermajority House and Senate. Most of them are progressive Democrats, progressive so-called. I call them regressive, really. And Phil Scott is known for cucking. But I will give credit where credit's due. In his big address the other day, the State of the State, he fixated on this mainly. His one positive aspect. He's a cuck on guns. He's a cuck on the NIMBYist environmentalism in this state, land usage and regulation, etc. So I frequently criticize him on these issues. But he has been generally good, let's give credit where credit is due, at limiting increases in taxes and so forth. We're already being hammered by the massive cost of living increase. It's like night and day. When I left Vermont years ago, I went to the Netherlands, all things basically being normal. And then when I came back, even, the time before last year, but much more now, the year before last, I think, I can't remember. The prices have shot through the roof. You should see the rental prices. You're paying Amsterdam rental prices to live in buttfuck Vermont, where there's effectively a glut in the number of good paying jobs that you've got. There's not a lot going on economically in our state. It's very tourism reliant. It's healthy. It's a beautiful state. It's got a lot of trees and shining water. It's relatively clean. After seeing some of the other parts of the United States, Vermonters definitely do a good job on Green Up Day. We got all sorts of advantages: high literacy, got good schools, and when they're allowed to function properly. But we have economic issues. If you were to raise the property tax rate by that amount, you would effectively crush the entire middle class of the state of Vermont. There are already people in the country that are taking out credit cards to buy groceries. You destroy the state economy. Phil Scott will probably try to ameliorate the damage. The one thing that he's actually good for is on economic issues. Generally, not always, but generally speaking, I'll give him a B- or something like that. He passes, unlike on guns or anything else. But how much can he ameliorate it? I mean, the Democrats effectively, they could ram this through if they wanted to unilaterally, just override his veto. Some of them would lose their jobs probably. They'd certainly chase a lot of their constituents out of the state. But you got to realize that our state is run by a bunch of upper middle class NIMBY white liberals in Burlington for the most part, and in Montpelier and a few other places. It's not really run by working class Vermonters, and you think of Vermont, you think of farms and forests and stuff. Unfortunately, we've got a microcosm of DC in Montpelier, and that's really who's running the state. So I wouldn't be surprised to see them catastrophically raise the property tax rate. Now, where's the trickle-down effect most prevalent? Rentals. Like I said, Vermont already has sky-high rental prices, and wages, trust me, have not generally kept up. If I own a property and I'm renting it to people, and you say, okay, well, now we're upping your property taxes by 10%, who's going to end up paying that increase? Me or the tenants? You see, there becomes the big problem because a shit ton of Vermonters rent. It's a lot of people. Rutland's full of rental properties. The Fushi company pretty much established a monopoly, by the way. They came in and back in the 2000s, 2010s, they were gobbling up properties left and right, and they own half of Rutland at this point. You got a de facto monopoly. At least they're not slumlords, so there's some silver lining. If you tell them you're going to have to pay a shit ton more money on all the properties you own because these are, they're going to have to pay it on that property, that's going to get inevitably in the end gets passed on to consumers. Or it cripples the landlords. They end up selling their properties to someone who is a slumlord or something like that. It's terrible. You can't make it work. Even a 5% increase would crush part of the middle class in the state of Vermont. And that's probably, they'll go for some compromise. It'll be, we're only going to do 8% or something like that. Dude, you would have some real fucking goddamn economic problems at that point. Most people will not be able to pay their rent. Then you watch what the state of Vermont will do. The leftists will complain about rental prices and so forth, and they'll throw more money at it in the form of welfare and subsidies, which get gobbled down and scarfed down by the other taxpayers. So basically me and people like me who can afford the prices in Vermont because, we're kind of making it. Then it gets passed on partially to us, partially to renters, and then the vast bulk of the middle class. And they're not getting any relief from the state of Vermont. They're not going to get Meals on Wheels or anything like that. They're middle class. They make too much money. On paper, they're doing okay, but they're not doing okay. Come see Rutland sometime. I mean, there's plenty of, I've seen the dilapidation of Rutland as people don't invest as much in upkeeping their property, etc. I've seen it firsthand because I've been here, well, other than the last few years, for most of my adult life. I know what it was like before the Great Recession, when our mall was a fun place to be. Now it's closed. The downtown just underwent a little bit of a revival. I wouldn't be surprised if that reverses if they do shit like this. Who the fuck can pay that amount of price? The property, by the way, property taxes shouldn't even exist because you don't own your own property. It's basically you're paying rent to the government. It turns literally every homeowner into a renter. I think we should abolish property taxes. And they say it's for education too. Well, we need this money for the education. Dude, there's less students every single year in the state of Vermont. So what the fuck are we paying so much more for? Inflated teachers' salaries, administrative salaries, make put a biodome next to the school or something. Okay, those things sound really, really cute and fine, and that's fun, and teachers have to make a living too, but we can only shoulder so much as the population of the state. I think that would be a little bit much for most people. I think you would end up with a lot of people moving out of the state if they have the capability of doing so. If they're not capable of doing so, you're going to have to expand that subsidy net, and that's going to affect other things in the economy too. It's a death spiral, basically. Alex Glands, keep on keeping on. You're one of my faves. Thank you very much, Alex. Succulent Juice. Those who watch hentai are judged harsher than those who watch regular porn, despite consuming the more ethical content of the two. Thank you for all you do. Thank you for that. Yeah, I mean, I don't really look at either, so. Baron Von Blair. California chopping off illegal dicks on pricks. My tax dollars hard at work on grotesque experiments. Thanks, Sticks, and happy Friday to all. Clank. Yeah, well, we'll talk about the California story in a bit. Scar Phoenix. Will you plug my girl's TikTok? It's Miss Honeybee 90. She does witchcraft and occult videos. She likes your occult vids. While I don't like TikTok, and she should probably just use YouTube and Rumble, yes, you can have a shout out. So Miss Honeybee 90 over on TikTok. Make sure that she has a separate phone for that that's got a Faraday cage around it when not in use, or else the Chi-Coms are quite literally spying on everything you two do. Analog Mind. Sticks. Do my super chats go through? That one did. Random 3263827. What's your take on the situation about Twitter losing it over Vivzy Pop's Alistair character in Has-Been Hotel because white creator writes about voodoo? Very curious to know. I was not aware that this was a thing. I'll have to look into it. But I really like Has-Been Hotel. The music's spectacular. Hell of a Boss is probably my favorite modern series, actually. The Commander 248. I'm once again asking for a shout out for my Twitter, the Commander 236, first name Jeffrey, where I spend my time brutally mocking and debating the liberals. Come join me for some fun. Clank. There's a shout out for your Twitter. Edward Ream. The band of the day is Batushka, Polish Orthodox black metal. And Eat Anton's, his beef sticks are legendary. Yeah, I think there's another shipment of Anton's good stuff coming now. AntonsUSA.com, by the way. Land of Biltong. Joe, hello to all the Joes. Fuck everyone else, except you. Oh, thank you for the exception. Sparky, greetings, fearless leader. Greetings, Sparky. DD2225, what nicknames do you have for Joe Biden? Mine are Joe Roomba Biden, Tala Biden, Phony Air Siren Biden, Dog Kicker Biden, and Quid Pro Quo Joe Biden. I still like just calling him Brandon. Brandon the fuck-up sort of works. Or the steward, you know. Helios Ending. Was God mankind's first dream of a good government? Yeah, I guess you could kind of construe it that way, yeah. Analog Mind. Sticks, have you considered this entity you believe you are in contact with could be using you like Zinch from 40K, manipulating you into seemingly innocuous actions with terrible long-term results? Where are the terrible long-term results? I'm not seeing them so far. Going to hell? That's okay. The Jerk. Hey, Sticks, you should look into the Fostech Eco Trigger. It fires on pull and release. Super fun and damn near as good as a machine gun. If you ever make it to Wisconsin, you can try mine out. Sounds cool. Fostech Eco Trigger. Let me look that up. Oh, Fostech. Okay, Fostech Eco Triggers. I'll take a look at that. Thank you. Thomas Kiefaber. Sticks, I want to send you a few gifts today. Can you repeat your mailing address or P.O. box in Vermont? I wouldn't ask if it wasn't out there already. No, I'm not going to do that again on a live stream because I just don't want any hassles. You can always DM me. I do need to set up a P.O. box at some point, though. Unknown. Listening live from Korea. Cool. The Jerk. We've been trying to reach you about our car's extended warranty. Endless Vertigo. Thinking of expanding the garden. What things grown in the garden are much better than store-bought variants? Need to grow in Wisconsin's climate. Beets, definitely, especially if you're pickling your own beets. You realize if you set up a little hoop house or salt weather crops in Wisconsin too, you could grow anything as long as you started indoors. That's what I'm doing. I'm going to be growing like poblano peppers. I planted them outside. I might get a couple of them, but I'd rather sprout them like 8, maybe even 12 weeks indoors first. Plant them outside when it's mid-May. Beets are king. Toxic Monger of the Hateful Brood. I came from the Sargon recommendation years ago. Stayed for the great takes and discussions, and now I'm still here for the Antons. That stuff is great. Agreed, it is. Zinc Orby 999. No comment. Thank you very much. Let's see. Brain Biscuit. It's so hot. Milk was a bad choice. Yeah, Anchorman. Ron Burgundy. Swamp Donkey, per my last super chat, how is it not politically feasible? The voters would support it in those areas. The leftists wouldn't, but who gives a shit? The right shouldn't play the rigged game. They wouldn't, in many cases, have the votes for separation. You would need more support. You'd have to start convincing city dwellers that they want to parse themselves off politically from the rural areas, but there's not as much of an attempt to do that. Brain Biscuit, why do bureaucrats think of an economic crisis as the ideal situation to jack up taxes? We fucked up our economy. Let's fuck it up some more, because that's the goal. Cam2425IA, have you ever heard of Dr. Robert Epstein and his Google research? The name rings a bell, yes. I'm not sure. Grim Metals. Hey, Sticks, I listen to you every day as I work. A few years ago, I was surprised when you actually mentioned some of my products on eBay. Thanks for the infotainment. Feel free to shout out Grim Metals. Grim Metals, consider it a shout out. Thank you very much. Next news story, the border crisis. And for some reason, the archive news link here isn't loading the actual story, so my apologies for that. Link in the description, by the way, cross-platform to my books blogs. Go get some goddamn books pinned at the top on YouTube, and all of the links that I refer to in this video, of course, there in the description as well. Got some merch. We've got a little bit of everything. Biden the other day insinuated that the Republicans were responsible for the border crisis because they won't give him his bill. They won't pass his bill with regards to attempting to secure the border. The problem is it wouldn't secure the border, number one. It spends a shit ton of money on other things that have nothing to do with the national security, number two. It's not a clean bill. Somehow, though, miraculously, Biden's team incessantly believes that Biden is going to be able to take that messaging and run with it, and it'll actually do good things for him politically. I do not believe so. And I think that on the border issue, Joe Biden has already effectively lost. It's just a matter of whether foreign policy keeps cooking up or it simmers back down, and whether the economy just is sort of is sort of how it is currently, which is bad, but at least stable, or gets worse, because I can't imagine it getting better as long as Biden is in his assumed office. Biden proclaiming that the Republicans are responsible for a border crisis that only really began to exist the second he took office because he showed weakness on the issue. This is why Kamala had to come out months later and say, don't come. Don't worry, your husband doesn't have that problem. Don't come to the United States, please. They're basically begging people to ignore the fact that the border is wide open. And as we will discuss later, some states are giving boons to illegal aliens that are not given to U.S. citizens, including in California sex change operations now, which is absolutely hilarious. So in other words, if you're a transgendered Californian and you're born in the United States, fuck yourself. If you came illegally, then they're willing to subsidize it. That's going to be a fun news story. And they know full well what they're doing. This is not by accident. It's not incompetence. It's malevolence. They are trying to import as many people as possible for slave labor, mainly. Harrison Bergeron, getting ready to build a walk-in cooler in my basement so I can process my own meat and use it as a root cellar. Cool. Sparky, what's happening in Vermont may be Argentina's destiny if Milei proves to be a globalist plant. Trump endorsed him, but he has a record of endorsing Romney's, Graham's, and McConnell's and hiring Pompeo's. I think that Milei is already doing a good job. The proof is in the pudding. Mega Reacts, I am wrapping up my first watch on Babylon 5, and I know you are a fan of the series. Do you have any recommendations for TV shows? Clank on. Babylon 5 was good, yeah, or at least the first few seasons of it. After season, I can't remember, 4 or something, kind of went downhill, and I didn't like the movie. I didn't like the ending to that. I'm like, well, that kind of fucking sucks now, doesn't it? By the way, why blow up the giant space station, not repurpose it or something like that? It never even made sense, to tell the truth. But anyway, yeah, Babylon 5 is good. Other series. Try binge watching Gunsmoke. Gunsmoke was fun. Also, Gilligan's Island, my favorite series of all time. Gilligan's Island is God. Let's see. Ryan Spratt. Hey, Sticks, as a 20-year-old, it's hard not to be blackpilled knowing I have such an uphill battle to try to live the financially sane and stable life I had dreamed of as a teen. Yeah, no, I know the feel. What I would suggest is build one new skill, try to drop one vice, marginally improve yourself, and you've got a better shot. Every little improvement that you make gives you more of an ability to potentially rise above the insanity. It takes time. It takes hard work. I got lucky myself. My particular skill set just happened to be just right at the right time. And then Sargon shouted me out, and that certainly helped jumpstart my career. And I happen to like books. That's what happened. A bridge too far. I've lost 200 pounds. I like you half as much as I used to. Congratulations on the weight loss. It doesn't matter if you like me less now that there's less of you as long as you're healthy. Just a sec. I want my clankers to be healthy. Long life to all of you. Next news story. California to provide free sex changes for illegal immigrants. A state memo regarding Medi-Cal stipulated that gender-affirming care is a covered benefit only when medically necessary. Of course, that means effectively when it's requested, depending on what doctor you're shopping for. It has been revealed that sex changes and hormone therapy will be included in the healthcare coverage offered to illegal immigrants in California. As of January 1st, everyone, regardless of whether they entered the country via legal means, will qualify for Medi-Cal, the state's public health insurance program. This program had typically been reserved for low-income individuals who are now thrown under the bus because of this shit. Families with children, seniors, people with disabilities, people in foster care, pregnant women, and low-income people with diseases such as tuberculosis, cancer, or HIV/AIDS. Prior to the new rules, illegal immigrants were only able to access emergency and pregnancy-related care, which, I mean, it kind of makes sense to provide that sort of care because, you know, the kid that's being born is effectively a citizen, and it doesn't really make sense to deprive, you know, like neonatal care, like, what's that stuff? You have the niacin, I think it is, or one of the others that you need to avoid birth defects, including having an open spinal column for some reason. Kind of morbid. However, surgical and non-surgical procedures that bring primary and secondary gender characteristics into conformity with the individual's identified gender, including ancillary services such as hair removal, are now covered as well. So the people of California are now effectively going to be paying for people who are not even in the country legally to get sex change operations and take like testosterone and estrogen and stuff like that. Yeah, the people of California really need to wake up to the mess that is their state government and how much of a howling mockery everyone else conceives of it outside of California. Fucking Washington State laughs at you. New York laughs at you. Just to be clear, it makes no sense. So now the low-income families, they get a little bit less, I suppose, so that people that are literally illegal can get more. It's sort of like a tale of what's happening in the sanctuary cities and stuff. You see people getting, you know, homeless camps overrun by people who aren't even legally in the country. This is not, by the way, asylum seekers. This is outright illegals. Also, illegals in California can get a driver's license. I don't know how exactly they justify not cooperating in any way with federal law enforcement. It's funny. If a state like Texas wants to do something unilaterally, Biden chides them. If California does this sort of shit and just says, we're not cooperating with the ICE or anything like that, or sanctuary state, they don't get in any trouble. David Bryan Ford. Ramaswamy would be good at press secretary. Not a bad choice. Jake Pliskin. Bidenflation madness. Salad and go bowls up 50%. Yeah, I mean, again, when I buy a handful of limes and I feel poor all of a sudden. Thomas Kifaber, I'm a geezer and can't manage so far to DM you. I'm at Baltimoreite. Can you or someone send me the address? I'm at Stick666official on Twitter. My DMs are open, though. All you have to do is press the little thing that looks like an envelope. Sparky, Javier Milei seems on track to sell Argentina out to globalist megacorps while subjecting citizens to ineffective austerity. Austerity stops economic activity. Proper reallocation jumpstarts it. Well, yeah, but if you've had a protracted period of hyperinflation, you're going to need austerity. There's no other choice. That's why they call it an economic shock treatment. And before they were trying to sell out to BRICS, to the East Bloc globalists. So it doesn't really matter. Everyone's going to be part of an economic sphere. Lance Finn 85. What a macabre world we live in. We will mutilate you for free. Yeah, man-made horrors beyond your comprehension. Billy, binge watch Top Gear till season 22, then watch the Grand Tour. James May is the ultimate Sigma. No. Let's see. Next news story. Nikki Haley decided to step in it again, now that we're talking about illegal immigrants. Nikki Haley says it's inappropriate to call illegal immigrants criminals, despite the fact that we normally call someone who commits a crime a criminal and illegally entering another country is a crime. We don't need to be disrespectful. We don't need to talk about them as criminals. They're not. They're helpless families that want a better life. Some of them I would agree. Absolutely. There are asylum seekers in the country, by the way, that have a legitimate legal claim. It's not necessarily one that I always respect, but it is a legitimate legal claim under our current framework. Illegal immigrants are criminals. They are committing a crime by entering the country illegally. Meanwhile, imagine you're a legal immigrant to the United States. So you paid tens of thousands of dollars and spent hundreds of hours with a lawyer, and you did the civics exam, you submitted your biometric data, you abided by the law for years as a resident, and finally you got sworn in as a full-on citizen and got your green card. Imagine how disrespectful it must be towards them to conceive of the fact that there are states and idiots like Nikki Haley that go out of their way to vouch for people who simply wandered across the Rio Grande. I would consider it a form of disrespect. Like if let's say I was like first-gen Mexican immigrant or something, I'd be pissed. I certainly wouldn't be voting for the Democratic Party. Zinc Orbi, you just caused an earthquake in California. Trump should invite Malay, Bolsonaro, Musk, and Farage for a summit. That'd be fun. I don't know exactly what will happen with Nigel Farage, although there are increasing calls for him to be released. Billy, binge watch Top Gear till season 22 and then watch the Grand Tour. James, oh, I already read that one. For some reason, I thought I had skipped it. Let's see here. Almost 4,000 people watching live now. Next news story, we've got Biden's job approval. Just some poll analysis. You know, Iowa's approaching, the primaries are beginning to heat up, and then you go on to the general election. Right now, Joe Biden is more than 16 points underwater, and this is in aggregate polling, so it's not a one-off. Some of them have him down, like CNBC a few weeks ago had him down 24, actually. And it looks like the spread is going to be about, it's stable. Rasmussen, I think, is the weirdest polling firm so far of this cycle, though. They constantly ride on the extreme outlier edge with regards to Biden job approval, Trump versus Biden matchups, Trump in the various states and the primaries and things like that, giving Biden seemingly a big advantage and Trump a big handicap in there. And it's kind of weird because Rasmussen, a few cycles ago, was rated as the most credible, along with YouGov and a few others, and had underestimated, support for the Democrats at times. Now it looks like they're doing the opposite, and it's kind of strange that his job approval is very low, and it's not going in a positive direction for Joe. In fact, it's very, very close to its all-time high in disapproval. Now, the other thing that I pointed out is that if you look at the trend lines, link in the description, you can compare it for yourself. You just drag it down. RCP's new layout is not as good as the old one. Really, they should revert to the way that it looked before. It's not as helpful for me. His disapproval has risen faster than his approval has fallen. The only way I can interpret that, and this is in the aggregate, so you've got plenty of data points, so we're seeing a good trend line. The only way I construe it is that he's lost several million independent voters. That's not a good place to be in when you're in a re-election bid. And Trump has been running systemically ahead of him by several points now for an extended period of time. And it's partially not Trump's strength, it's Biden's weakness. I consider Trump to be a good candidate, but at the same time, I consider Biden to be a shit candidate. And the polls, I think, reflect this. And the momentum is in the direction of him gaining more disapproval. He's only got a couple more points to go in that spread. So that's both numbers that are departing from one another before he's at his all-time low in approval, his all-time high in disapproval. He has one of the worst track records in polling history as far as the U.S. presidency goes. He's approaching Jimmy Carter levels. Jimmy Carter didn't get reelected. There was a reason for that. And Trump is a little bit like Ronald Reagan. Let's hope he just doesn't cuck out in the second term like Reagan did once he got Alzheimer's. Thomas Kifaber, Sticks, did you hear about Nikki's latest pronouncement? We have to deal with a cancer that is mental health. Didn't see that particular gaffe. I do recall a while ago when she was saying that gender reassignment stuff should be done to kids and that it was a parental decision. Analog Mind. You got a big audience. Consider butterfly effect. I take the dark forest hypothesis as doctrine when dealing with aliens from other dimensions. Look what happened to Earth with our leaders talking to the clockwork elves. Sparky, you should visit Argentina. Even with bad economic times, it's awesome. 10 days straight of their terrific grass-fed omega-3 saturated steaks every meal because you want to feel 15 years younger. I would love to see Argentina, yeah. Argentinians. Rocky, Breaking Bad, and Season 1 of True Detective are the greatest TV shows of all time. No, Deadwood would be on that list of greatest TV shows. Both are an absolute must-watch. Yeah, if you want comedy, go Gilligan's Island. If you want some really crazy shit, you go with Deadwood. Dag, Nabbit 32. Illegal immigrants destroy their home and host countries by leaving their home country and taking jobs and resources away in their host country and committing crimes in their host country in the U.S. Also, in some cases, you get brain drain in the original country, too. This is debated within academics, actually. Dag, Nabbit 32. Many are cartel members. Yeah, cartel members are coming across the U.S. border, and very little is being done to actually do anything about it. Again, shouldn't be tolerated. The Biden administration has fundamentally fucking failed. They've failed on the border. They've failed on the economy. They've failed on foreign policy numerous times. It's just a never-ending string of failures. I can't see any reason why anyone would want to vote for Joe Biden unless either they have severe TDS or they have a D after their name. You know, in the partisan sense, okay, well, great-grandpappy was a Democrat, grandpappy was a Democrat, dad's a Democrat, all my relatives is Democrats, except for the weird uncle that we don't invite to Thanksgiving, and so I voted Democrat. Okay, well, you know, at least you appeal to tradition or something. Next news story. The dude who killed Eric Eugene Washington at the El Ranchito Taqueria last year has been exonerated by the grand jury. He will not be charged with a crime. George Soros prosecutors really, really wanted to charge him with a crime in this case. What happened is an assailant came into the restaurant, while he's there. He's armed. The assailant's waving a gun around, so he shot him. He was in fear of his life, and he shot him multiple times. The gun turned out to be a toy, so it wasn't like a legit, robbery or anything like that. But he claimed self-defense. He said, "Look, I thought this guy had a real gun. He's waving it around. He's shouting threats, so I shot him in self-defense." Indeed, that's what the grand jury decided to find. It was probably a unanimous decision in the end. I would have certainly not voted in favor of charging him. It's clear-cut self-defense. Only a complete idiot goes into a place, even with a fake gun, and starts waving it around, and it's immaterial whether it's fake anyway. You're still making threats against people. A reasonable person is not going to take the time to examine your weapons. Hey, is that a real gun, or are you just fooling with me? Is this some sort of prank? Shit. It's Texas we're talking about, by the way. Only in Houston would they have even convened a goddamn grand jury. The dude shot him because he thought that there was a credible threat of violence and fucking waltzed out, actually, if I remember correctly. And they fixated on the fact that the person shot was Hispanic, supposedly. I'll read this briefly. Police later determined that the gun was a fake plastic pistol and asked for the public's help locating the man before the case was eventually sent to grand jury by Houston's progressive, George Soros-backed prosecutor, Kim Ogg. The security video went viral on social media. I remember seeing it that day. An activist quickly called for the man, who has not been identified by authorities, to be pursued for criminal charges in what they call an act of vigilantism. Well, yeah, kind of, sort of, but the dude's waving a gun around and standing within proximity to you, that's a threat of violence. It doesn't matter if it's credible. Yeah, you can't determine if it's a credible threat. You can't determine at a glance whether the firearm is real necessarily, unless it's like a pink plastic water gun or something like that. Even that'd be hard these days. Have you seen people, they doll their guns up and they have like fucking anime characters on them and shit like that, and they're like dildo colored. So yeah, even if someone starts waving a pink pistol around, it might actually be a real one. Be interesting if that ends up going before a court docket. That judge will have to cross their eyes and scowl in confusion. Others argued that the man's actions were a legitimate form of self-defense and he had a reasonable cause to believe his life was in danger. Of course, I happen to agree with that. So George Soros loses this round. Self-defense is upheld again in Texas. Only in like Houston would this have even gone to grand jury in a state like Texas. Rocky, I'll buy Deadwood if you watch Breaking Bad and TD. I've seen Breaking Bad. I haven't watched True Detective. I wasn't a huge fan of Breaking Bad. There were some funny moments, let me tell you, but overall, that's just not the kind of show I'm into. I want either slapstick, crazy-ass comedy like a Gilligan's Island, or I want something that's like deeply disturbing like Deadwood tended to be. A lot of gore, a lot of nudity, huge amount of swearing, lots and lots of racial references. What more can you possibly want in a series about a time period in which these things were very, very common? Although I would point out they were a little bit less brutal, generally speaking, than the series portrays. Yeah, Deadwood probably wasn't the sort of place you wanted to prowl around at midnight in. You might end up getting fed to the pigs. There were some cases involved. Real life Al Swearingen was found dead next to the railroad tracks, and they're thinking he probably got murdered. Although I think that the medical people, I think they claimed that he just fucking died. By the way, I think that I accidentally closed out my last news story. Or did I even have another one? Oh, no, that was the last news story. Okay, well, that makes my job a lot easier. Whoops. Also accidentally closed out Rumble here. Caught slipping. Nelson's Tassin Game Archive. Trans shitlib power mod on Wikipedia. Currently banning all page edits to anyone on the Epstein list. Locking all people on the list's pages. Ken PM Deet. I am not the least bit surprised, although they do have a tendency to lock down pages that are pertinent to breaking news of any major kind. And presumptively, there have been numerous editing attempts by people in bad faith as well. I'm not siding with the Wikipedia editing team, by the way. They are notoriously biased, off their fucking rocker levels of bias, and obviously far left leaning. I've sparred with them a couple of times before. I gave up bothering. Anyway, most of the cool articles on Wikipedia are perpetually locked anyway, so it's no longer the People's Encyclopedia because most people are not allowed to actually make any edits. Sparky, EU and US are on their way out. BRICS is on its way up. I disagree with you on that too. People wouldn't know it with their continued belief in legacy media fake news and preconceived notions from decades of propaganda. Trump is US's last hope. I do believe that our best hope at a good future is to re-elect Donald Trump, and preferably make it dynastic and get like Rand Paul or somebody like thereafter. The Void. How likely is Trump to win Pennsylvania in the general? Any defortification there? Keep up the good work. Been watching since 2016. Partially defortified, and I would say he has a decent chance. It's not as big a chance as like Georgia. Trump is running out way ahead. I think Georgia is going to be his to lose. He's competitive in Wisconsin. It looks like he's pulled ahead some in Michigan. Well, Michigan and Georgia, that's basically game, set, match. Pennsylvania, I think, is maybe a slight advantage Trump at this time. But again, we've still got another year for the economy to get worse, the border crisis to continue to metastasize, and for more foreign policy mistakes. And for Biden to potentially have a medical issue because the man is 82 fucking years old. So I would say Pennsylvania leans very slightly Trump, but it is a true toss-up. Para-Ed says Clank. Pilgrim Media, Sticks, do you keep a bug-out bag for emergencies? I have plenty of emergency supplies, yeah. Rocky, True Detective Season 1 is right up your alley then. Oh, I'll have to check it out. I don't really watch a lot of TV and on-demand series, though. I'm too busy watching Hell of a Boss over and over. Money Drip 6665, Wayne LaPierre has officially stepped down as the NRA chief. Interesting. Astral Walker. Did you see Biden's first 2024 campaign ad? It's all J6 footage and mud democracy and Orange Man bad. That's all he's got. Ha ha ha. Well, I mean, he can't talk about the economy or the border or fucking anything else. That's pretty much all he's got. Yeah. I'm probably going to go offline, by the way, a little bit early today. But first, let me also make sure to point out to people, there are 2 links in the description of this video, well, this live stream cross-platform, unless you're watching on Twitter, actually, to merch pages. I work with Pumpkin Fire Crafts. There's an eBay page there. You can get all sorts of neat things there. You've got Ouroboros spoons. They say various things on them too, clank and stuff. We've got bookmarks, keychains, belt chains, which I'm not still 100% what they're for. And also to landofbiltong.com, where you can get delicious meat from Anton's in Roanoke, Texas. You can also get Sticks merch. There's a page for that as well. I suggest a mug and a few pounds of Angus, something like that. Remember, there's the Ghost Pepper Wagyu now available. Again, from my standards, 4 out of 10 on the spicy scale. Most of you would probably call it a 6 or a 7. Alarian Horizon. The Biden regime has FOMO ruined peace in Korea. Yeah, the North Koreans shelled an island the other day. They were shelling. They've done that before. They didn't do that when Trump was president. Sebastian Monroe, I ordered more potassium iodide. Where do you get your supplies? Wherever I can. I tend to use eBay for purchases that people would consider to be out there because eBay's got some good shit. I just wouldn't buy many clothes and higher quality things because a lot of it's Chinese bullshit. Even worse than Amazon. A lot of China, like Shein, has ruined the clothing market on there. It's like I get, my Hawaiian shirts, and it'll say that it's vintage, but then you realize that it's a knockoff and it's not actually vintage. That happened a couple of times. Silky Johnson sticks. If you like violence, nudity, swearing, and hedonism at its finest, check out the Spartacus TV series. Good character story, and the spoon is used. You've had me at spoon. Oh, completely ruined peace in Korea. Typo, says Alarian Horizon. Yes, I got that one. Yeah, Trump is going to have his work cut out for him if he's reelected, because he's probably going to spend a couple of years just being obstructed by Congress. And then he has to spend the next couple of years trying to scrape things together and eliminate some of Biden's worst errors while also pushing his more positive policy agenda. Foreign policy, Trump did a real goddamn good job, generally speaking, in his first term. And I really, really hope he does in a second if he gets it. And I'm really hoping that that happens. Having a Grover Cleveland moment right now would be best for America. Even if I didn't particularly support Trump's ideology, I would still want him to be reelected. Mopey Hornet, hey Sticks, ever thought of having an assistant for Super Chats like Razorfist has Terran to help? No, I like doing it myself, actually. I enjoy this format. Sparky, Georgia Politics and Justice is run by Chris Ray and his Old Boy Network. Chris commutes to work via government jet from Georgia. Yeah, but if you've got a 7 or 8 point gap, it's going to be real difficult to convince the population that Trump lost. I think Georgia will go for Trump. He's not far behind in Virginia, actually. The new poll, it's only 4 point gap in Virginia. Virginia is supposed to be more blue than that. That shows a systemic collapse in support for Joe Biden, if not the Democratic Party overall on the map. Again, I'm going to have to do a pretty deep analysis of the House races, because it looks like the Republicans may go into the election with a slight advantage, while the Democrats are defending seats that are not as surefire. They like the Republicans 2-1 are defending seats, but where an incumbent is resigned or whatever, they're not running for office, that are solidly red. Whereas the Democrats, they have quite a few vacancies there that are competitive. So it could go either way. We'll have to do more analysis closer to the election. The Senate, I think, will tip towards the GOP. But again, keep in mind the Republicans. Keep in mind that the last time around, the Republican Party was wasting fucking millions of dollars on races that they fundamentally couldn't lose because the only candidates were Republicans on the ballot, like in Alaska with Shabaka versus Murkowski. So don't underestimate their ability to fuck up. Just like Joe, ironically enough. Hink Hall, The Sopranos is still king. Funniest show of all time. I didn't really like The Sopranos, actually. Alarian Horizon, did you see DeSantis sold out on the J6ers? Yes, I saw that. DeSantis has come out and condemned the J6ers and called them unpatriotic. Well, I think that he just lost the MAGA minus MAGA crowd somehow, actually. MAGA minus Trump, rather. Pumpkin Firecrafts, happy Friday, Sticks and Clankers. 20% off order with code Sticks Hexenhammer. We also have pins and pendants. Yes, I know. Have a great weekend. That's Pumpkin Firecrafts. Again, link in the description to that merch page. Pollyanna Forever, thanks for putting your shirt back on. Oh, I would take it off, but it's too fucking cold today. I like being shirtless. It's fun. Having nothing but the leather touching your skin, it's just cozy to me. Sort of gotten into a habit of it. Scar Phoenix, your reaction when George W. dies. I'll be like, hee hee hee. I'll have to do my W impression when he croaks. The day can't come soon enough for that warmongering bastard. But, at the very least, as a post-president, he doesn't really interject himself much into politics. So there's that, I suppose. But you really fucked up, George, with the whole Iraq thing. It didn't go over so well. And what about that Afghanistan? Yeah, that withdrawal was just great. Anyway, I'm going to go offline now because I have other things that I need to do. And also, I'm a little bit tired, actually. I didn't get so much sleep last night. For some reason, I couldn't fucking fall asleep. I went to bed really late. And I slept in a little bit, but I still only got maybe 5 hours or something like that. So, yeah, I'm a little bit more on the low energy side today. And I ran out of news stories. I'll be back on Monday with the next live stream, unless there's something big and important over the weekend. Then I can live stream anytime, my schedule permitting. But I do have other things that I need to do. Sparky, Ray controls Georgia politics, including the elections. Yeah, which is a problem. But again, if the gap is unfeasibly large, there's no way to rig it properly. It's not really possible. I think Georgia's partially defortified too anyway. So we'll see what happens. But I think Georgia probably tilts in the Republican direction. That's about all. Peace out.